Of course, it would be almost illegal for me to begin a video without telling you about these two babies here, being Horsewirer High Alpha Vault, already available in digital format and in physical format depending on when you're watching. Pandemic has made everything weird, but anyway, here you go. Hope you like them, and if you do, please subscribe, like, and I hope that you enjoy the video. Welcome everybody to this new episode of Analyzing Fiction. I am your host, R.H. Naranjo, and this is the 15th episode of this series, which means that the first season of my channel is officially coming to a close. And I believe that next season is going to be much longer, so that we don't have 15 seasons per year, but yeah, it's gonna be much longer. Season 2. Anyway, we have officially come to an end, and to celebrate it, we're gonna be talking about Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, one of my favorite books from last year, and I think that you should really read it. So, this is actually four novels. It's a Canterbury Classics edition, so we have Oliver Twist, Christmas Carol, Great Expectations, and Two Cities. But Great Expectations is approximately about this size. So yeah, let's begin with a POW for this edition. And holy moly, this is gonna get a 9 because I really liked it. It tastes really good. Oh, by the way, because it's the last episode, I'm using the red shirt, and I think that I just moved everything right here. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, we can officially begin talking about our author here, Charles Dickens. And you probably know a tad about Charles Dickens. He is pretty much the second most well-known author, apart from Agatha Christie, maybe also Cervantes, the Quixote, however you say it in English. But he's one of the most sold and the most well-known authors of all time. He is the best author of England after Shakespeare, and boy oh boy is there a reason for that. He was born in, I don't remember, in 1812, and his family was fairly poor. His father was a cleric for the army, I believe, which meant that they often had to move from here to there and often had economic problems. In fact, he had to be dropped out of school and put to work because he could not continue paying for school, so his parents sent him to work, which is where he actually got the inspiration for all these difficult places in which his characters go through. Now, Charles Dickens was always a very entertaining person. He liked to get up on the tables. He wanted to get up on the tables and dance, and often organized plays that he would perform in front of his family. So he was always a guy very into entertaining others, and this would even come to make his fellow authors angry at him, because he believed that being boring wasn't necessarily a synonym of being of actually giving out a message, and that being entertaining wasn't a synonym of having no message at all. In fact, Charles Dickens was always a firm believer that if you wanted to give a message to people, you had to give it in an entertaining way, which is why most of his books are in that way entertaining. Take, for example, The Christmas Carol. So, lost my trail of thought there. So Charles Dickens, eventually, as he grew up, he grew to know all of these different places, how they were very difficult to live in, and he empathized with the people who had to live in worse circumstances than he did. So when in his 20s he discovered his ability with journalism, he set out to write, seeking to change these things. So Charles Dickens began to write, I don't know the exact year, but he began to write different stories in which he told different situations of different people along different places, you know? So he did it in a way, however, that made it very, very convincing to people. He knew that if he wanted to make people understand the situations in which others lived, then he needed to teach them how they would feel in such situations. So he ended up creating characters such as Oliver Twist, who live in mildly fair circumstances, that they are faring well, and through a series of unfortunate events they end up in very difficult places, right? So that way he made people think, instead of, oh, poor creature, he made his readers think, what if that happened to me? And that way he guaranteed that people would think of ways to to stop doing those wrong things, such as child labor, for example. So Charles Dickens set out to call out all these different and hard situations in which people lived, and to show people how the world in which they lived wasn't as perfect as they believed. That in fact it had many problems that, though they knew about, they pretty much ignored because they weren't affected by it. So he made people empathize with characters that weren't real, and through those characters that weren't real, in an entertaining way, he showed them situations that were very real and were very harmful and very dangerous. And this is also why he used entertaining so much. He wanted to entertain his readers so much. However, Charles Dickens wasn't the most perfect person in the world either. In fact, he was a very clumsy father figure, you could say. He was very ashamed at his children, and he said it multiple times, because they were into gambling, they were into wine, and they often didn't get to work on the things that he personally wanted them to. So he was very not the greatest father of all time, you know. But I mean, it's normal. Not all of us are saints. So yeah, it's even though he was a fairly great person in literature, he wasn't the best father of all time. In fact, he was on the lower end of fatherhood. Yeah, and he got married twice. His first wife, pretty much they separated, never saw each other again, and he married again with someone who was 30 years younger than he was. So holy moly. Why? So not the best figure in his personal life, but in his literary life, he is definitely one of the great ones. Yeah, we can officially begin talking about the plot of this book now. So Great Expectations follows young Pips, a boy who is in a very humble family. He doesn't have like tons of money, but he gets the opportunity to go play with a young girl named Estella, who is the alleged nephew of Miss Havisham, the richest person in the town. And if he does so, she will give him money. And he goes on and he plays with her, and he gets money, and they grow up together. And he develops a huge crush for Estella. And it's devastating because she is essentially being taught how to ignore men, right? So how to torture men even. So she doesn't love him back, she just tortures him, and it's about their relationship as they grow up, and as Pips is suddenly given a ton of money to do pretty much whatever he wants. So this is essentially the plot of the story. It's fairly simple. I highly recommend that you watch a movie called Great Expectations. It's an adaptation by Alfonso Cuarón, the Mexican director. It is a fantastic movie, and it was the movie that convinced me to read this beauty here. And I really suggest that you read it too. A very great book. And yeah, that was essentially the plot of this book. I said it fairly quickly, but now we can officially get into my review of the story. So let's begin with the plot. And this plot is far bigger than in Cuarón's movie. This has far more factors than just the relationship between Pips and Estella. In fact, it's incredible how many things appear in this novel that just, instead of making it all harder to understand, it just enhances each plotline, enhances the rest, to the point that you enjoy every single one of them. It's amazing how he develops each plot. However, I would say that the biggest ones are Pips with Estella, Pips with his friends, and Pips with his protector, you could say, the one who's giving him all the money. That's essentially the biggest three relationships, and they're very interesting, each and every one of them. Of course, the most interesting is the one Estella, between Pips and Estella. That relationship, it's amazing. I really like it, and I'm sure that if you watch the movie or read a book, you will like it too. It's amazing. That story is incredible, and I really enjoy it. And yeah, it's amazing. That's a 10 out of 10. The others, Sometimes they can get a little boring, sometimes they can get a little dull, but most of the time they're just as entertaining as the one with Estella. Not more, but just as. So that's essentially the plot. A great plot. I really, really like it. And yeah, we can get to characters now. So characters. We will begin with Pips, and even in the last video, in the Spanish video, I only got to Pips and Estella because the review was getting too long, but no. Now we'll get to Pips, Estella, and the uncle, who I don't remember his name, and I feel bad about it. I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. But let's begin with Pips, and Pips is an amazing character. He begins being so innocent. In the first part of the book, he is incredibly innocent, like Edmond Dantes level of innocent. And as the story progresses, he begins to learn that not everything is as he intended it to be. Not everything is as he thought. That people don't always act good in a good way because they aren't always like that, right? So he shows during the book he grows as a person, and he grows to understand how other people think, and his relationship with Estella is probably the biggest factor that helps in that. It is truly a magnificent story, how a magnificent character development, an incredible arc, how Pips manages to develop so much in so little time, how he grows to understand that not everything in the world is money. In fact, that money is just a medium, it's not an end, and if you use money as an end, then you will have a very unhappy life, and you will pretty much hate it forever. You're gonna hate it. So it's a very, very interesting story. I really like how Pip is developed throughout the story. However, the great character in this book is by far Estella, and Estella is just as interesting to you as she is to Pips. And she had a similar effect on the reader, on me, as she had on the main character. So with every chapter that they are together, every time you finish one of those chapters, you are pretty much almost skipping through the rest so that you can get to another chapter with Estella. Their chapters are just so entertaining, so exciting to read, that when they finish, you are like, no, I want more, I need more, why? No, don't leave me now. You want more relationship between Pip and Estella. Even though the other stories are great, Estella creates this atmosphere where you want to know more about her, you want to spend more time reading about her, and it's incredible how Dickens manages to build all that. And she goes through an incredible character development throughout the story, and I believe she is the personification of human nature as being a good one, good intended human nature, instead of the Lord of the Flies-esque bad human nature. And it's more of the good savage. I don't know how it's called in English, but that human nature is by definition intended to goodness, and she proves that in how she grows. Even though she had a very horrible education and she was very, you could say, abused mentally as a child, she grows to overcome that and to really learn how to love others. And it's a very interesting story. I really like it. I really enjoy how she is developed, how her arc grows over time, how it develops. It's simply fantastic. I really like it, and I don't know, for some reason she is the best character, one of the best female characters I've ever read. She is truly incredible, and it is kind of ironic that Miss Havisham, through her trying to save Estella from having her heart broken, accidentally broke her heart. It's such a beautiful irony there. I really enjoy this novel in all its aspects. And now we can talk about Miss Havisham and the Benefactor very quickly. And Miss Havisham, she is crazy, but crazy in a good way, in a very enhancing way. I really like how she is developed throughout the story. I really enjoy her character development. It's truly amazing, incredible. I love her, and I hate her at the same time. I love her and I hate her because she deserves what she gets. And yeah, she is one side of the story, and then you have the benefactor who is on the other side of the story. He grows in such a way. He begins being like the worst character you've ever met. You hate him. You don't even know why, but you just don't like him as a character. He threatens Pip. He treats him very badly. But at the end, he's like, oh my god, you're like a saint. Please come here. I want to hug you. You are my best friend forever. I love you, boy. I really love you. Man, it's truly an amazing story. I really like all of these characters, all of these plots. Charles Dickens is great, and I'm just gonna skip his narrative. He writes very well. I really like how he writes. He writes incredibly well. Let's just skip ahead and get directly into the execution. Charles Dickens is a magnificent author, and that's why I'm gonna give him a 96 out of 100. The best book in this season. I really enjoyed reading this story. I loved it, and that's why it deserves the 96. Now, quick announcement before we leave. Season 2, the first 5, 6, I doubt 7 videos are gonna come once every week, right? I'm not gonna, for some time, I'm not gonna publish like every 2 days like I'm doing here, 2 days per week, but 1 video per week for the first couple episodes. Then we're going to come back to the normal, to the ordinary schedule of 1-2 videos per week. But for now, because I have many things to do, I won't have time, and it will be 1 video per week. So expect that. And anyway, this is the end of the season. I'm excited. Season 2 is probably gonna be longer, not 15 episodes, more, so that we don't have 15 episodes per 15 seasons per year. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this season of analyzing fiction, and I will see you later. All the links will be in the description, and goodbye.